The world I knew simply vanished behind me. One moment there was the rumble of a distant engine, the faint echo of civilization. The next, only the rustle of leaves and the thick, humid air of the jungle pressing in from all sides. I took a deliberate step forward, the soft, damp earth giving way slightly under my boot. This was it, the start of something raw, something real. My mission was simple, yet it felt monumental. To spend one night completely alone, with no tools, no help, and no connection to the outside world. Just me against the wild, an ancient contest between man and nature. This wasn't a casual hike or a weekend camping trip. This was a deliberate severing of ties, a challenge I had set for myself to strip away everything modern and comfortable. The air itself felt different here, heavy with the scent of decay and new life, a constant cycle playing out in every shadow. I could feel my heart thumping a steady rhythm against my ribs, a mixture of adrenaline and pure, unadulterated excitement. Every sense was on high alert, tuning into the symphony of the jungle that was already beginning to swell around me, a world that had existed long before me and would exist long after. I pulled out my phone one last time, a reflex more than a necessity. As expected, the screen showed no bars, no signal, just a stark, empty icon. It was a strange feeling, a digital umbilical cord being cut. For a moment, a flicker of unease danced in my stomach. That little device represented safety, a lifeline to help if things went wrong. Now it was just a useless piece of glass and metal. I switched it off and shoved it deep into my pocket. The real test was about to begin, and there would be no electronic safety nets to catch me if I fell. The decision was made. There was no turning back now. With the phone off, the final link was broken. I stood still for a long moment, letting the reality of my isolation sink in. I was a single solitary human being standing on the edge of an immense breathing wilderness. The challenge ahead was not just about physical survival, finding shelter, water, and avoiding danger. It was about mental fortitude. Could I handle the profound silence? Could I conquer the fear that was sure to come with the darkness? This was my chance to find out. As I pushed deeper into the jungle, the path vanished, replaced by tangled vines and ancient trees. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting cathedral-like beams. Every sound, my footsteps, my breath, felt amplified in the silence. The silence was alive, filled with insects, dripping water, and the creak of trees. As the sun set, fear crept in. I needed to find shelter before night transformed the jungle. The light was changing. A golden hue washed over the canopy, a beautiful, urgent warning. The sun was sinking and my window to prepare for night was closing fast. I needed shelter, defensible, protective, and fast. My mind raced, scanning for any advantage. Relief hit as I found a cluster of massive banyan trees, their roots forming a natural enclosure. With no tools, only my hands, I gathered branches and leaves, turning this wild space into my fortress for the night. My hands were raw and covered in dirt. I worked with frantic intensity, weaving branches through banyan roots, building a barrier between me and the unknown. It was a primal act etched into our DNA, a declaration: I am here and I will endure. My bed of leaves was a sliver of comfort in the wild. Large waxy leaves became my roof, nature's top against the night, crude and messy, but mine. A fortress built of hope and determination. As twilight settled, I felt a surge of pride. I had done all I could. The transition from day to night in the jungle is a dramatic takeover. The sun disappears and the air grows thick with sound. Frogs croak, cicadas drone, and insects chirp. A wild symphony erupts. I crawl into my shelter, heart pounding, senses sharpened by fear. Darkness falls like a blanket. My world shrinks to this tiny space. The jungle is alive, beautiful, terrifying, and utterly indifferent. The night has just begun. In the suffocating darkness, a new enemy emerged: hunger. My body, drained from building the shelter, demanded food. Every sound and shadow felt sharper, my mind drifting to thoughts of meals I couldn't have. Surrounded by life, yet unable to eat, I faced a primal emptiness. All I could do was endure the night, waiting for dawn and a chance to survive. Worse than the hunger was the thirst. My mouth was dry, my tongue felt thick. The humid air was deceptive, it was heavy with moisture, but none of it was drinkable. My body was losing water with every breath, every bead of sweat that had formed during my frantic shelter building. Dehydration is a swift and silent killer in the jungle. It dulls the senses, slows the mind, and drains your strength far faster than hunger. I knew I couldn't last until morning without water. The need was immediate and critical. I had to take a risk and leave the relative safety of my shelter. Crawling out of my small fortress felt like stepping off a cliff. The darkness was absolute. I moved slowly on my hands and knees, feeling the ground in front of me with every inch of movement. My ears strained to catch any sound that might signal danger. The symphony of the jungle seemed to swell, 1,000 unseen eyes watching my slow, clumsy progress. My objective was simple: find water. I remembered seeing large waxy leaves during my earlier search for roofing material. Plants like that often collect pools of rainwater or morning dew, creating natural bowls of life-saving liquid. I felt my way from one plant to another, my fingers brushing against damp foliage, rough bark, and delicate ferns. The textures were my only guide. Then I felt it. A large, smooth, concave leaf. I carefully tilted it towards me, praying it held something. A few precious drops of water trickled out and fell onto my hand. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. It was proof that water was here, within my reach. Renewed by this small success, I continued my search, my movements becoming more confident. I was a blind man navigating a world of immense danger, driven by the most powerful instinct of all, the will to live. Finally, I found a larger plant with several cupped leaves holding small pools of water. I knelt on the damp earth and carefully drank from each one. The water was cool and tasted of earth and leaves, the most delicious thing I had ever consumed. It was more than just hydration. It was a victory. I had faced the darkness, navigated the unknown, and provided for myself. As I drank, I could feel my strength returning, my mind clearing. The water washed away not just the thirst, but also a layer of fear. I had proven to myself that I could survive, even in these impossible conditions. With my thirst quenched, hunger returned with a vengeance. The water in my stomach only highlighted its emptiness. My hand brushed against a line of large ants on the bark. In the jungle, they were a potential source of protein. I hesitated, then made my choice. I closed my eyes and ate the ants. It was a small act of defiance against the overwhelming power of the jungle. I had faced the darkness, found water, and foraged for food. The jungle had tested me, and I had not yet broken. Back in my shelter, the jungle's darkness pressed in. The real challenge wasn't outside, but inside my mind. In the silence, doubts and fears whispered, what if something crept in? What if I couldn't find my way? My imagination became my tormentor, projecting worst-case scenarios onto the darkness. I fought back by speaking aloud, reminding myself, you are safe. You built this shelter. My own voice became a small beacon of hope in the immense dark night. With my immediate physical needs met, the jungle presented its next challenge. This one was not a creature or an element, it was a battle fought entirely within the confines of my own mind. The darkness was no longer just a lack of light, it became a canvas for my deepest anxieties. The initial thrill of survival had faded, replaced by the slow, grinding reality of the long hours ahead. The night stretched before me like an endless black ocean. My shelter, which had felt like a fortress, now seemed fragile and small against the immense breathing wilderness that surrounded it. The siege had begun. My thoughts began to circle like vultures. Simple worries escalated into full-blown fears. A small scratch on my hand from a branch now throbbed with the imagined threat of infection. The water I drank, which had tasted so sweet, now brought whispers of unseen bacteria and sickness. My mind, deprived of external stimuli, turned inward and began to prey upon itself. Every sound from the jungle became amplified, twisted by my imagination into something menacing. The chirping of insects sounded like a warning. The distant call of a night bird sounded like a cry of distress. The line between reality and paranoia began to blur. This was the true test of isolation. It's not just about enduring physical hardship, it's about enduring yourself. When you strip away all the noise, all the distractions of modern life, you are left with nothing but your own thoughts. And sometimes those thoughts are not kind. The jungle was holding up a mirror, forcing me to confront the parts of myself I usually keep buried. The fears I never acknowledge, the insecurities I hide behind a busy schedule. Here, in the suffocating darkness, there was nowhere to run from them. They were my only companions. I realized that the greatest danger I faced was not from a snake or a predator. The greatest danger was the potential collapse of my own spirit. Despair is a far more lethal threat than any animal. It saps your will to live, your strength to fight. It tells you to give up. I had to actively combat this mental assault. I had to find a way to anchor myself, to hold on to my sanity as the long dark hours ticked by. This was not a fight for my body anymore. This was a fight for my mind. The loneliness was a physical ache. Faces of loved ones floated in my mind, ghosts in the darkness. Here, cut off from the world, regret and fear crept in. The jungle stripped away my mask, leaving me exposed. But I realized I could face these ghosts, find a spark of light within, and choose not to surrender to the darkness. To fight the chaos, I spoke out loud to myself as if to a friend. I named my fears, gave them voice, and in doing so stripped them of their power. I recounted my story, childhood, triumphs, failures, love, loss, reminding myself who I was. The act of storytelling became my anchor, a thread back to my identity. I questioned myself, what am I truly afraid of? Not the dark, but insignificance. The jungle forced me to confront these questions, not with answers, but with honesty. In the heart of the wild, I had the most honest conversation of my life, and the only person listening was me. When the talking stopped, a new silence settled. Yea, immense, not threatening. I felt the weight of existence, heart beating, lungs feeling, the raw fact of being alive. My identity, my labels faded. I was just a living creature, part of the jungle. The fear of being alone dissolved into a sense of belonging. I was the universe, experiencing itself in this tiny moment. For the first time, peace washed over me. I had faced the darkness and emerged calm. The storm inside me passed, and the darkness softened. My senses calmed. The jungle's sounds became a soothing chorus, not a threat. I surrendered control, accepting my small place in this vast world. This surrender brought strength, a connection to everything around me. My mind cleared, focused on the present. The feel of leaves, the cool earth, the night air. I was fully present, aware, rebuilt by the jungle's quiet power. Piece by piece, peace returned. As pre-dawn light crept in, I saw a dewdrop on a leaf, an entire world reflected inside. Its beauty was profound, a microcosm of the jungle's complexity. I noticed the intricate patterns on a moth's wing, the diamond threads of a spider's web. The jungle's wonder was in the details, not just its scale. Gratitude filled me, not for survival, but for the gift of seeing. The jungle became my teacher, showing me how to find wonder in the smallest things. I learned to see with full attention. With delight, I realized the jungle had been speaking all along. In patterns, sounds, silences, I stepped outside, no longer an intruder, but a guest learning the language of life. I watched ants march, plants reach for light, and my senses sharpened. My primal awareness returned, dissolving the separation I once felt. I was not just a man in the jungle, but another living being among many. The fear and loneliness faded, replaced by belonging. Here, I found a peace no city could offer. As sunlight touched the canopy, I felt my own insignificance, and it was liberating. My story was a footnote in the jungle's vastness, and that was a relief. Free from ego and expectation, I could simply be. My value was in witnessing this beauty, not in achievement. I accepted my smallness, my mortality, my place in the chain of life. The jungle stripped me bare, but gave me a new perspective. I found peace, not in conquering, but in reconnecting with nature and myself. The sun climbed higher, chasing away the mist as the jungle woke with energy. It was time to leave. Dismantling my shelter, I felt reluctant. This place had become a sanctuary. Each step away from the deep jungle felt different. The world looked brighter, the air cleaner. I was walking out, but carrying the wilderness within me. The sound of rescue was now an intrusion. I was not the same person who entered. The jungle had changed me. One night in the jungle taught me that true strength isn't about conquering nature, but finding your place within it. In the silence, I faced my fears and found a sense of belonging. We are all part of the wild, and only by reconnecting with it can we truly find ourselves. Even in darkness, you can find your own light. if you're brave enough to look.